What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Primetime Sports Podcast, hosted by Joey McLaury. So in this episode, we're going to talk a lot about BC hockey. They just advanced to the Frozen Four. I'll talk about how they got to where they are now, and then I'll also talk about Northeastern and BC baseball, both advancing to the Beanpot Championship game, which will be next Tuesday, April 9th at BC. I'll talk about how both those teams have been playing as of late. I'll also preview BC's weekend series against Florida State, a very good team coming to Chestnut Hill for a 3-game series this weekend. So let's start off with BC hockey. They advanced to the Frozen Four. They're going to match up with Michigan next week on April 11th in St. Paul, Minnesota. That'll be a great matchup. I'm definitely looking forward to it. I'll probably preview that game just before that game happens. So if it's next Thursday, I'll probably preview it maybe next Wednesday. But I'm going to talk about how BC got to where they are now. So in the first game of the NCAA tournament, BC had a close game for 2 periods with Michigan Tech. Michigan Tech played a lot faster than I thought they would. They honestly gave BC a scare for a while, at least for the first 2 periods. But in the third, BC really just took the game away, and Michigan Tech couldn't keep up. In the second period, though, after a dirty hit by Gabe Perreault, BC had to kill a 5-minute major penalty, which usually that's guaranteed at least 1 goal for the other team. But Jacob Fowler didn't surrender any goals during that penalty kill. He was great for BC in the entire game, and that honestly was a turning point. That gave BC some momentum back after they killed that 5-minute major penalty. Obviously, losing Perreault is a loss. Perreault was thrown out for the rest of the game after that hit. A bad mistake by the freshman. Hopefully he learned from it. But BC found a way to turn that, obviously tough sequence, giving up a major penalty, and they turned it into momentum by not giving up a goal. And Michigan Tech only had 3 shots on goal, I believe, during that entire 5-minute stretch, which is really tough on their part. They should have been just peppering shots on goal just because this is their chance to tie the game up. They're down 2-1. They can make it a 2-2 game, but they obviously weren't able to, and that ends up being a big difference maker at the end of the day. As for BC, they scored 36 seconds into the game, took a 1-0 lead, and then Michigan Tech tied it up with a shorthanded goal in the first period. That was actually BC's second shorthanded goal allowed all season. They were usually great on the power play, never really gave up any rushes. But in that game, Michigan Tech found a way to score. BC did take the lead back, though, with a goal from none other than Ryan Leonard, who actually just broke the freshman goals record at BC. Like I said on the radio a few weeks ago, I think he's the best player on BC. I said it on the Beanpot. I said it when I was on the radio, and I'm saying it again now. I think Ryan Leonard is the best player on this BC team. In the third period, BC got a huge goal from Connor Joyce, who has not scored since October. But this goal actually gave BC a 3-1 lead, and BC never looked back after that. Things did get dicey and chippy in the third period. Logan and Chase Pietala, both of those guys ended up getting penalties, along with BC's Aiden Hershuk and Will Smith. So you had Logan Pietala, Chase Pietala, Aiden Hershuk, and then also Will Smith all get penalties on the same sequence. Things got really physical after a tough hit to Ryan Leonard in the open ice. It ended up getting Chase Pietala thrown out of the game, a player on Michigan Tech, and then also Tyrone Bronte, another player on Michigan Tech, were thrown out as well for fighting. If you look at it, BC also played a little chippy as well. As I said, they did have a dirty hit from Gabe Perreault that ended up getting a major penalty. So this game was a chippy game, but I didn't really like BC getting into fights at the end of the game. I know it was a dirty hit to Ryan Leonard by Michigan Tech. I didn't agree with that hit by Pietala, but BC had to know that they were moving on, and they were playing for more than just a regular season game here. It's not like this game meant nothing. This is a big game. You're in the Frozen Four tournament. You don't want to get a major penalty and then potentially have a guy be suspended. Obviously, Michigan Tech at that point is playing for nothing. There's no need to risk a suspension. BC did catch a break. There were no suspensions from that game. But as I said, I don't want to see BC playing chippy at the end of the day, especially in a game at that point that was meaningless in the third period. BC got another goal from Ryan Leonard and Cutter Gauthier. They both scored again in the third period, giving BC a 6-1 win. One thing I didn't like was Cutter Gauthier staying in the game until the last minute, it seemed like, looking for a hat trick. I'm not really too big of a fan of that. I understand he wanted to get a hat trick in the Frozen Four tournament, but you can't stay in a game like that during a chippy game, still looking for a hat trick, but the other team's also looking to hit and play rough and play physical. It's too much of a risk injury-wise, and it also felt like stat padding to some degree, especially when you're up 6-1. That gave me vibes to Jason Tatum. I'm not really too big of a fan of that. BC did get the win, though, most importantly. Then BC ended up moving on to play on Sunday and had an overtime win, 5-4 win over the reigning champion Quinnipiac Bobcats. BC never led until the game went a goal. So obviously Quinnipiac found a formula that did work for most of the game, but BC found a way to keep battling. They just kept battling. They gave up 2 goals in the first 2 minutes of the second period, one of those goals being a power play goal for Jake McClellan. But BC didn't let that stop them. They didn't really give up after going down 2-0. And obviously it's a big game. You're not just going to give up no matter what the score is. But if you've watched BC play at all this season, you know they're capable of scoring 2 or 3 goals within a blink. We've seen them do it many times this season. And going down 2-0 in the first 2 minutes of the second period, BC found a way to respond. With that being said, though, they did put themselves in a tough position. A bad cross-checking penalty by Will Smith led to a power play goal for Quinnipiac, and that was one of the many mistakes from the freshmen in this game. Besides Ryan Leonard, I feel like every freshman did struggle. Perot had a bad hooking penalty, Will Smith had a cross-checking penalty, Drew Fortescue had a cross-checking penalty in the second period, and then Jacob Fowler wasn't his best in net. So a lot of the big-time freshmen did struggle in this game. Ryan Leonard did show up, though. BC scored its first goal 2 minutes into the second period to make it a 2-1 game. That was right after Quinnipiac scored 2 goals. BC responded less than a minute later with a Ryan Leonard goal. Yet again, another power play goal for him. And then Andre Gassot also scored as well about 10 minutes later after that Ryan Leonard goal, making it a 2-2 game. But then Christophe Fillion, a player on Quinnipiac, scored with 4 minutes to go in the second period, giving Quinnipiac a 3-2 lead. But BC responded with another power play goal. And this shouldn't be any surprise to anyone, but it came from Ryan Leonard yet again. Yet again, another power play goal for Ryan Leonard. He's just absolutely automatic on the power play. BC's power play is absolutely lethal. Ryan Leonard, Gabe Perot, Cutter Gauthier, Eamon Powell, Will Smith. You're looking at 4 first-round picks right there. I mean, that's just really, really hard to stop. And Ryan Leonard has been great on the power play this season. That second goal from Leonard made it a 3-3 game, so BC did even it up. But then yet again, another mistake. A cross-checking penalty at the end of the second period from Drew Fortescue gave Quinnipiac a power play to end the second period and start the third period. Quinnipiac ended up scoring just after the power play ended into the third period with another goal from Jacob Quinlan, giving Quinnipiac a 4-3 lead. So BC's trailing here 4-3 with the whole period left to go. But things got really nerve-wracking for BC. It took until the 15-minute mark of the third period for BC to tie up this game. Aaron Manetian had the game-tying goal for BC, just his third goal of the season. And it couldn't have come at any better of a time for BC. The biggest goal of the season for BC, and he was the hero of this game for the Eagles. Without this goal from Manetian, there may have not have been any winning goal in overtime by Jack Malone. BC might not have ever gotten that opportunity. Who knows? There was still 5 minutes left to go in the third period when Manetian scored. But there's never a guarantee BC's going to score in that window. So at the end of the day, even though BC's offense is great, having that game-time goal from Manetian was the turn of momentum that BC needed. And as I said, without Manetian's goal, who knows what would have happened. So even though a lot of the freshmen did struggle in this game, like I said, Manetian's another freshman. A freshman defenseman, though, and he came up huge in this game. So Leonard and Manetian, both of them came up huge in this game for BC. And if you saw that play from Manetian, got a turnover from Quinnipiac's Colin Graff, went all the way down the ice and made them pay and got the game-tying goal. That was huge for BC. Then in overtime, Jack Malone scored the game-winning goal for the Eagles 3 minutes into the overtime period. He got a rebound out front, right in the crease, in front of Vinny Duplessis, the goalie for Quinnipiac. He had a deflection go off for his padding, didn't end up seeing it, was on his back, and Jack Malone came in right in the front of the net, right in the crease, and cleaned it up for the game-winning goal, tapped it in for the win. Credit to Quinnipiac, though. They played great all game. They won the faceoffs in this one. They led for a lot of the game, but they just let things get away from them late in the third. They played very, very conservatively in that third period, and then obviously it comes back to bite them. Because maybe if they played a little bit more aggressively on offense, maybe they would have a 2-goal lead at the end of the game rather than a 1-goal lead. But they played defense, and obviously sometimes that's a good strategy. If it works out and you win, you're happy. But considering they lost that game and played very conservatively in that third period because they were just trying to maintain the lead, that's obviously tough. But credit to them. They played great in this game, and obviously were the reigning champions last year for a reason. BC will now face Michigan next Thursday, as I said. I'll preview that game around then. One thing BC needs to do better, though, is win in faceoffs. They were beat by Michigan Tech in faceoffs and Quinnipiac in faceoffs. They need to be better. This will be BC's first trip back to the Frozen Four since 2016. I'm definitely excited for that game. As I said, I'll preview that game next week. And that'll be an exciting game. That'll be a revenge game for Marshall Warren, former BC defenseman, transferred to Michigan this past season. He was the captain last year for BC, and now will be playing BC in the Frozen Four. So that's obviously going to be a special game. One thing Michigan does really well is the power play. They're number one in the country in the power play at 35%. BC second at 29%. Definitely excited for that game. As I said, I'll preview that game next week. So now I'm going to move on to Northeastern and BC baseball. Both those teams winning yesterday to advance to the Baseball Beanpot Championship game at BC next Tuesday on April 9th. Northeastern baseball on the year 22-6, now winning 8 games in a row. So they're obviously red hot right now. They didn't start the year the way they wanted to, which was a little bit disappointing. I know they wanted to start out on a better foot. Started out the year actually 1-2 in their first series against Arizona. But they've seemed to figure things out over the last couple weeks. They defeated UMass Amherst yesterday 12-1 with 15 hits on the day. Only gave up 2 hits, so that's a great margin. They had 15 hits as an offense, only gave up 2. So Northeastern will advance to the championship game of the Beanpot. This is their first time doing so since 2018. So obviously an exciting time to be a Husky. In yesterday's game, they did not have Mike Sirota. He was out of the lineup for the second straight game. Hopefully he's back and healthy for that game against BC next week. Alex Lane was 2 for 3 in yesterday's game. 4 runs batted in and a home run. He's now up to 50 runs batted in on the year, which is second most in college baseball. Also has 4 RBIs in 3 of his last 6 games. Harrison Feinberg, a USC transfer who went to Northeastern after just 1 year at USC, was 2 for 4 in yesterday's game, 2 doubles and 2 runs batted in. He's starting to turn things around. And then Jack Doyle has been on a tear as of late, 2 for 4 in yesterday's game with a double and 2 runs batted in. He had 5 runs batted in and a 3-run home run versus UConn last week. He's starting to get things going at the plate as well. And Michael Gemma got the start for Northeastern on the mound. He did struggle, going just 1 inning, 3 walks, an earned run, 2 strikeouts, and 2 hit batsmen. Wasn't a great game for him, but he has been solid as a midweek starter for Northeastern. I think he'll figure things out on the mound. Northeastern did beat BC back on March 19th at BC 10-6. Northeastern scored 8 runs between the 4th and 6th innings. That ended up being huge for their offense, including a home run from Greg Bozzo, a double from Harrison Feinberg, and also an RBI single by Mike Sirota, followed up by a home run from Alex Lane. He has been great all season for Northeastern. BC did have a big 4th inning. They took a 4-3 lead after a 3-run double from Parker Landwehr. He also had a home run in that game, so he had a great game all around. Kyle Wolf was 3 for 4 for the Eagles in that game with an RBI and 2 runs scored. Michael Gemma got the start for the Huskies. He was great in the first 3 innings, but really struggled in the 4th, and that ended up being the difference maker for him. If you look at his stat line, he had 8 strikeouts and 3 1/3 innings pitched, 4 earned runs though. But before that 4th inning, he was really locked in, no runs allowed, was kind of unhittable to some degree, had a great breaking ball that was just working up until that 4th inning, and then obviously things did fall apart. But as I said, he did show great stuff in that game, has shown great stuff with that curveball all year. Evan Moore started for the Eagles on the mound. He honestly was solid as well. 3 scoreless innings, looked really good as a breaking ball as well, had 4 strikeouts in that one. So BC, obviously, versus Northeastern will be a great game. BC and Northeastern both made the NCAA tournament last year. BC is 15-11 on the season with a 5-game win streak after winning yesterday's game over Harvard 17-9. Harvard and UMass Amherst, both these teams are really struggling this season. Cam Leary was great for the Eagles yesterday, had an RBI double in the 3rd inning to give the Eagles a 3-0 lead, but it was a 4-4 game in the 3rd inning after Harvard responded with a Chris Snowpeck big 2-run double. It was a 4-4 game after the first 3 innings, but then after that the Eagles went on a run. 6 consecutive runs they scored between the 4th and 6th innings, which is usually the stretch where BC seems to get their offense going. They did against Northeastern in that 4th inning. They did yesterday against Harvard, scoring 6 consecutive runs between that 4th and 6th inning. That ended up being a big difference maker in the game. BC did score 7 runs in the 7th and 8th inning as well. But at the end of the day, it was really that stretch between the 4th and 6th inning that took all the momentum away from Harvard after they tied the game at 4. But it was a very sloppy game defensively for BC. There were 11 combined errors in this game, so both teams weren't great on the defensive side. Harvard had 7 errors, including 3 of them from their third baseman, Jordan Kang. He started the game at third base, made 3 errors, did also pitch in that game at the end. BC did have 4 errors of their own. That was a struggle, especially earlier on in the game. Brian McMonagle got the start for the Eagles on the mound, going 2 1/3 innings, giving up 4 runs, none of them being earned though. As I said, BC did struggle on defense, and a lot of it came in those early innings. McMonagle did add a strikeout and allowed 6 hits, going 2 1/3 innings, not allowing an earned run, which was great. BC has scored 10-plus runs in 3 of their last 4 games. The offense has been rolling, and they're going to need that to be the case this weekend. They have a really tough series coming up against a red-hot Florida State team that I did say would bounce back this season in my predictions, and that ended up being the case. They're 23-4 in the season, a top 15 team in the country for a reason. They are 17-1 at home, Florida State, but they're just 2-3 on the road. So if BC can find a way to still win in this one, I think that'd be a good weekend. Just 1 win would be a good weekend considering how good Florida State has been this season. In their last 2 ACC series, though, Florida State has won 2 of 3 games against Louisville, and the 2 of 3 games they won against Clemson. So they did drop a game in each of their last 2 series in the ACC. If BC can find a way to win 1 game, I think that would be huge. James Tibbs III was a guy I mentioned in my preview on the season. He has been on an absolute tear for Florida State. 12 home runs, 3rd straight year with double-digit home runs. He has a .413 batting average on the season, also adding in 17 walks while striking out just 9 times. 9 strikeouts and 104 at-bats. So he has been great, locked in at the plate, has had a great batting average his whole college career, but this year has really been a career year. .413 batting average, 12 home runs already. Florida State as a team has 51 home runs on the season. They have a ton of power. Their ace is Jamie Arnold, a sophomore left-handed pitcher who has a ridiculous .66 ERA on the season in 7 starts, which is the best in the country. .66 ERA, is the best in the country, has a great slider, a good fastball as well. Both of those things have helped him reach 60 strikeouts in 40 2/3 innings pitched in the season. Last season, he struggled as a freshman, a 6.34 ERA, but he really figured things out. Last summer was a Cape Cod All-Star, which I think was huge. Being a Cape Cod All-Star is a great honor. That was some momentum he carried into this season. And now this season, he went from a 6.34 ERA as a freshman to a 0.66 ERA as a sophomore. So he's been great this season overall for Florida State. I'll be able to see him pitch this weekend, which is going to be great. I'll be calling the game for WZBC on Friday, so make sure to tune into that. If you do have the time, that game will start at 3 o'clock. Anyways, that'll wrap up this episode. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to listen to this. As always, I appreciate it. I hope you guys have a good one. I'll see you guys in the next episode. Thank you.